Good morning. It's Monday, October 29th, 9 a.m. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 3, receive comments from the public. Would anyone like to come forward and address the board on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, we will go to number 4, discussion and possible action on a request from the Lower Cedar Watershed Management Authority Executive Committee for a startup contribution of $100 to $1,000 to aid in developing basic informational materials regarding the LCWMA.
This is something like we talked about, I think, after the last meeting I attended, and there's a number of things they want to do about watershed management, some education grants they want to go after. And one thing that became pretty apparent was they don't really have funding for anything. The authority has nothing, and they need, postage and some of those kinds of things to go after some of the educational grants, and some of the grants may have matches and some of that. And so they talked about setting up a fund. I'm not, I think everybody here would know I'm not into funding things without specific directive, but I think this is a group and an area that we need to keep an eye on a little bit. And so I'd recommend we take if we could get like a $500 commitment to it. They're not even looking for a check at this point because they don't have a fiscal agent yet. But we could just say that Muscatine County would commit to $500 for, and we maybe could even say for Muscatine County and the municipalities in our jurisdiction the folks like Nichols and some of the others that are participating may appreciate that. So I don't know the board's thoughts on that. But I've got a meeting coming up here in a few weeks, and if we don't want to take action, that's fine as well. I'll see if this has gone any further.
I don't have a huge problem with that. Do you see this developing into an annual support item?
That was a pretty big item of discussion. I don't think anybody there is at this point willing or interested in it being that. Now, I don't know if some of the SWDCs might be taking more, or soil and water conservation districts might be taking a more active step, because I think the current employee, it was a grant written by Nature Conservancy, but they're employed by the Muscatine County Soil and Water Conservation District, and utilizing some of their resources, I think, to get this work done.
I could support a startup situation like this. I would not be in favor of an annual situation personally, but I could support this to kind of get the ball rolling for them a little bit. Anybody else?
I think the only stipulation that I would put on it would be that, this contribution is for stamps or, not to be used for anything but what they've asked for here.
Grant writing.
Yeah, developing informational materials.
Yeah, that's kind of what it says in the paperwork.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to see, some feedback from them on when they use it and what it was used for.
Yeah. And if they're making progress.
Correct.
And I would think that if we wanted to do this, we just make it an authorization, because there's really no request, there's no fiscal agent yet,
Well,
so.
didn't you just say that you thought there may be some additional discussion on it by them? Before they have an official request?
I think we're discussing, again, what my hope would be is if at the next meeting, if we say, Muscatine County would probably consider a one-time contribution of $500, say, to assist in informational materials, then I think that would be, we could bring that to the table.
I'd rather wait and see what they ask for.
Okay.
I'd rather hear more detail from them than have them actually ask for it. I don't care to get involved in another. I haven't been sold on this since the beginning. something about it just doesn't quite make sense to me. So what, I'd rather do it that way, that's just my position. Hear them, see what they really want. I've always believed that you don't get it if you don't ask. I wanna hear them ask. Tell me, explain to me what they're gonna use it for. I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing grants, and I'm hearing this thing on the paper about the website and development and all this and that. And I'm also wondering too, knowing the organization like I do, the background of it, how it's been funded up to this point, because it's really being funded through that, not the Lower Cedar Group, but, what's the other outfit that they're, yeah, Conservancy, right. And so that's all donated money. I wanna set and wait and see what they're gonna do.
Well, the Nature Conservancy put the original group together. They took the administrative effort, but then they also did a grant. They wrote a grant on behalf of the Muscatine County Water Conservation, or Soil and Water Conservation District, who is now the administrator and taking the lead on it. So the Nature Conservancy is kind of stepping out of that role, or trying to.
So it's separated themselves.
Trying to, I think. You know, they indicated they'll stay involved if need be, but they're not really, this is not their, you know, not one of their mission. They'd rather have these soil and water conservation districts, I think, is the concept to drive these forward. So that's fine, we can take that there. You know, basically what I'll share with them is the board is not opposed to anything, but we'd really rather see a more specific request.
Yeah,
With what the usage would be.
Let them come before the board.
Yeah, and Jeff, can you update me a little bit on the structure? And I know initially when it started up, there was some concern by potential members of who would be in charge of what, and who would be in control of what, and what the real mission statement was. I'm still not totally clear where they ended up at.
Yeah, so we've been going through organizational, that's been probably the prior 2 or 3 meetings. Eric, you'll have to help me. You know, we've kind of elected an executive group. I think John Bell is chair, Cedar County, and then Bill is out of Johnson. I don't remember Johnson County's guy's name. So we've got a chair of member agencies. There's like 31 government entities that have signed on to this thing now. It's all a bunch of municipalities and counties and soil and water conservation districts. And so that's, I think Josh is, and we have the administrator that was hired by the Muscatine County, and that's I believe a 2-year grant, 2 or 3 years that position's grant funded for. And so she'll be around. We've got Holly, that's Holly. I get Hannah and Holly. All these Howards. There's way too many of them around this part of the world.
You might lose one soon.
Okay. Holly Howard is the person that was elected, put into that role. She's doing a great job and doing all the outreach efforts. And so that's really who's running it. We have a number of other people on there from some of the other watershed management authorities. And like one, she's on the Indian River or something, but she's really representing West Branch. And so we've got, I think probably 2 or 3, is that right, Eric, that are working on other watersheds, like Mary Beth and
Well, Mary Beth's the watershed coordinator through the DNR.
Okay.
A watershed person from the DNR, and then there's the gal from the West Branch area that's the watershed coordinator for that
Indian River or English River. There's a couple of them in there that we have.
been in existence for a while.
Yeah, so we've got.
The primary mission is though to try to get this watershed, these areas, under some type of control, reduce flooding, or?
Well, it's to coordinate efforts along the watershed. I think that's really what it is, to coordinate. And that was part of the discussion last time is, there's a lot of activity on the watershed already, but people don't know about. So that was, I think we'd seen as an example of a website, or they talked about one, and that was where they were gonna try to use, somebody commented, that's not a lot for a website, but this is like piggybacking onto a website that's already done, and then to populate it with the data for this watershed, so it'd be a different page, and then here's our projects on the same, it's kinda highlights projects, and you click on them, and it gives a little blurb that says, it was on this individual's farm, and they did a biodigester, and here's the results of the biodigester and what that was, and because whether people understand it or not, there've been quite a few projects on the watershed, even in Muscatine County, that most people are not aware of, and part of this is a little advertising and education, because of all the naysayers that say that we're just continuing to destroy nobody's working on the water quality issue in our rivers, so.
Okay.
So I think that I can march forward with that, it's not a problem if we have so I'll just tell them, we're not opposed to a contribution, but we'd like to see something with a scope limit on it and an understanding of,
Understand it's a one-time.
and we'd be considered a one-time. Yep.
Okay. Number 5, discussion and possible action to approve proclamation 10/29/1801 Diabetes Awareness Month, November 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nathan, second by Jeff. This is a roll call vote. Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Passes. Number 6, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the October 22nd, 2018 regular meeting.
Second.
Motion by Matt, second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Correspondence. Matt, you have anything?
Nothing.
Jeff?
Nothing.
I had nothing. Nathan?
No.
Bob?
Nothing.
How about committee reports, Bob?
The Conservation Board meeting was Monday. I had something come up and I wasn't able to make it to that. I should be receiving some of the reports I normally get regarding activities and attendance, so forth on those. And then I'll pass this along. One of the things he's gonna review, I haven't looked at this totally yet, but they're going out for bids and stuff on vehicles, so
Oh, sure.
you can just review it. But that's all I've got back from them so far, so when I get the rest of the information from the meeting, I'll bring it next time, I guess.
Okay. Nathan?
On Monday the 22nd, I had a meeting with the Mental Health and Disability Services Region. We had a lot of good discussion. We've gotten the various service providers, including Robert Young, to increase the number of metrics and amount of data they're collecting to provide us with a better idea of the services they're providing and their efficacy. We also scheduled, or at least rescheduled, some of our long-term strategic planning for December. We had originally had that planned for last week, but the thought was with, other than myself, all 4 other members of the governing board are either up for election or retiring. So didn't make sense maybe to do a lot of long-term planning with a board that could be 80% new. So we're gonna wait until after the election. On Wednesday, I did have a schedule for the Bi-State Commission, but unfortunately I had a trial that day, so I was not able to attend.
Okay. On Tuesday, the 23rd, I had the Fair Board meeting, it was the annual meeting as well. And in a nutshell, I brought a report from it to the board. In a nutshell, the fair turned a profit of approximately $5,000 last year, which is, although that seems relatively small, it's definitely a good situation too. They were blessed with very good weather, and they were able to take and end up with a positive result there. I also want to note that on the fairgrounds last weekend, I believe it was, they planted approximately 50 different types of trees on the fairgrounds out there, and so time will only make those better, of course. So that's all I had.
Scott, we had some conversation passed over the several months about, I guess, the relationship or the negotiations between the Fair Board and West Liberty Foods. Where did all that sort out to?
Well, it's absolutely, currently has come to a standstill, and the Fair Board and Fair members, from the conversations I have, don't seem to be interested in discussing any farther. Of course, the vote went not to participate in the initial offers and conversation, and it has since pretty well just died, basically. So currently, there are no conversation, no negotiations, no more talk about it.
And so, just so folks understand, that's not something the board or any other entity, we being the board, have any control over. That's entirely the Fair Board.
That's correct.
Thanks.
Jeff, you have anything?
Yes, on Thursday, we had the We Lead Board, which is the West Liberty Economic Development Group. If you remember, we just finished up our strategic plan. Well, this week we could deal with, we've had the executive director has resigned. She's got a, which is, you know, she took, it was kind of a tough situation when she came in, and she has, for a number of reasons, decided to go on to another role, but going to be in support. We've already, you know, she's helping through the transition, going to commit through the transition, so we'll be coming out. We have already got a plan. We've got the announcements, the job postings and all that'll be going out. I'm sure they were out last week. So if anyone knows anyone that's interested in the role in economic development in West Liberty and Muscatine County, you be sure to watch for those postings, and I'm not sure where all they'll be, but I'm sure they'll be posted publicly. We'll start that process and hopefully have somebody on board by January.
Okay, Matt?
I did not.
Don't have anything, okay. Number 9, receive information from county employees.
I just wanted to give you a quick update. Last Monday night, we had the community coordinator outreach meeting with FEMA and the DNR on the new floodplain and flood insurance rate study, followed by the public open house where members of the public could come in, review their property to see how the floodplain map changes would affect them. Had pretty light turnout, only 4 or 5 individuals, which is not atypical for these types of things. However, following that meeting, the 90-day appeal period begins, where people who feel like they're being adversely impacted by the flood map changes can gather and submit technical data to appeal FEMA's changes on the maps, particularly where a property has been not in the floodplain previously now will be shown in the floodplain. There is appeal period for those people to basically hire a surveyor, submit technical data to show FEMA that they're wrong, that their property shouldn't be in the floodplain. What I really wanted to update you on is part of this information that we received. There was 8 properties in Muscatine County that had previously been granted LOMAs, which are letter of map amendments, where the homeowners had gone through the process to prove that their houses were in fact high enough and had been recognized as out of the floodplain. This new flood insurance study showed 8 properties where those LOMAs are being superseded, where the new information suggests that the information from the previous LOMAs is insufficient and they are going back in the floodplain. I started digging into those because I felt it would be necessary to contact those people and let them know, hey, things are going to change for you. You've already paid a surveyor to prove that you're high enough, and now you're apparently not going to be. There's some issues with this floodplain map. I reached out to the DNR last week and was on the phone this morning. The main problem is like 7 of the 8 were not even in the area of the new study. And so I asked the question, well, how could their LOMAs be superseded if they're in an area that wasn't even reviewed? And the answer I got from the DNR was like, that makes no sense to me either. I'm still going to reach out to these folks because there is an appeal period that you know, they can start having, you know, provide documentation, me come and look at the maps. I just wanted to let you know, because there may be some people that are very concerned with some of this, but we're looking into it, and that we've uncovered some issues with this study.
Eric, I recall the last time these went out, and a lot of properties got pulled in. Do we have any idea how much additional properties? So they've not done, like last time they didn't include the levees as protection, but that's water under the bridge, so to speak now, right? They didn't do that to us again. I say that because what happens is, for anybody not listening, is these are very important. These set the FEMA national flood maps. And what happens is, if your home is to be determined to be into a floodplain and you carry a mortgage on your home, you will be required to purchase flood insurance. Your bank will require that in any lending institution, and they're very diligent about that. Flood insurance is quite expensive if you've never purchased it. So this has could potentially have a very major impact on you. So I think people need to pay attention to what's going on,
And Eric, I was contacted by someone regarding this issue. Could you send me timelines again for appealing and so forth, so I can forward them on to these folks? And this is going on, I don't know, nationwide, but it's going on statewide, right?
I don't know how many counties in Iowa, but it's probably the majority of them.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Was
Are they
last
all on the
year,
same
this year?
timeline?
Well, once they hold their public meetings and present the preliminary proposed maps and have the open house, after that meeting, a 90-day appeal window starts. So like following our meeting on Monday, the next day they were in Lee County and Henry County holding these meetings. So their 90 days starts a day later. It's all following
Gotcha.
the official meetings.
So, when you, not only the timelines, but as soon as you hear something on the discussion you had with the IDNR or whoever, FEMA, when they said that, yeah, that didn't make sense, let me know the results, would you?
Yeah.
Because, like Jeff's saying, the folks that are concerned have a reason to be.
Right. I'm gonna be working closely with the DNR. They're a little closer to home, so to speak, and they seem to care a little bit more. FEMA's opinion is, well, you know, we've ran this highly technical data, and you're in the floodplain now, and unless you can spend thousands to prove to us that you're not, here's a little carrot. You can buy flood insurance right now at a very cheap rate because you're not in the floodplain yet, and they basically grandfather the rate. If you buy your insurance before the new maps come into effect, and that's good for 2 or 3 years, and they seem to think that that's sufficient, that people can buy it at a cheaper rate, and they're locked in for that rate, you know. But my opinion is, for our local residents, if this data just doesn't support them being in the floodplain, then that's what we want to address.
Well, and not only is Jeff mentioned the increase in flood insurance costs for those who hold a mortgage, good luck trying to sell a house.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I have a couple questions. Number one, if people who have been high and dry, so to speak, in the past and are now going to be in the floodplain, are they going to get any kind of notice? And if not, how can people who are concerned find out whether or not their home is now going to be considered to be in the floodplain?
They would have to, there's a couple different websites they can look on. However, they're not that easy to calculate if you're not somewhat familiar with GIS type mapping. They can contact my office, and I know I just opened a floodgate there, again, no pun intended. But we can help them look up their property and determine. That's what those public meetings are for. But again, it's just typical. And to go back to your question, how many properties were affected? I would have to spend thousands of hours just going through the map. They don't provide a list, they just show this is the new boundary, and I'd have to go every boundary change and pop on a house to get the address. It's just impossible to know. It's best for the homeowners, if they're concerned, to look it up and find out.
Yeah,
there's properties that are coming out, and there's properties that are going in as these change.
I just recall last time this happened, I know a lot of properties in the southern part of Muscatine, because they didn't consider the levy as certified, went into that. And you know, flood insurance, you know, I have property down there, and you know, $160,000 valuation. My flood insurance was $1,000 a year, $50,000 deductible. So that's not much insurance for $1,000 a year. So it's very expensive and not really great insurance. So, that's things people need to be watching for, because as most of us know, that's probably not one of our higher income areas in the county.
And several of the properties that their lomas are being superseded are in this, the island area, the Thayer's Lodge area, that are showing area protected by a levee. And that's what raised the question, because we were specifically told that those areas weren't part of this study. That was a recent study where they did certify the levee. These properties are now behind a protected levee. And so my question was, well, how can they supersede their LOMA if this area wasn't even part of the new study? And that's where the DNR replied, yes, that makes no sense. So they're looking into it. I just wanted you to be aware there are some issues where we're gonna be working with FEMA, but direct people to my office, I guess. I'll direct them to the appropriate people in the DNR or FEMA, but we're gonna assist them however we can to.
And then what about, like, is it like the ones we attended on the Nichols area, there's similar issues up there? Or could you tell, Eric, from the mapping?
Nothing really changed from what we were preliminarily presented with that Nichols. You know, as you recall, that was more of a, do you want to look into certifying this hockey slough, I believe it was,
Right.
berm to a levee? It really would have had very little effect on the preliminary maps. You know, even if we would have spent thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most of that is agricultural land in the Nichols areas. A few properties in the city limits are going in, some are coming out. But this is much, much larger than the Nichols area. The West Liberty area in town, same thing, some coming in, some going out. But I'm particularly concerned with these LOMAs that people have already obtained, now are just being wiped away. You know, people spent money to prove their house or property was high enough, and they're being superseded, and they shouldn't even been part of this study. So
just to recap for the media and for folks who may not have caught it the first time, there's been a new floodplain study. If you're close to a floodplain and you haven't been in it previously, make sure to check, because if you are in a floodplain, it's going to drastically affect your flood insurance rates and requirements. And for those who are not sure how to check, contact the zoning office.
correct.
So what technology is FEMA using to draw these maps?
Yeah, I'm not qualified to explain all of it. I know they used the new topographical data from the statewide LiDAR project that happened a couple years ago, more accurate contours. There was computer modeling of creek profiles, river profiles, hydraulic analysis. There's a whole combination of things that they use to create these new maps, and water depths in certain areas. It was a combination of things.
And how accurate are those? I don't expect you to give me I'm kind of speaking out loud, just or thinking out loud here. Because like, you know, there's some GPS machines that are, you know, accurate within 3 feet. Well, 3 feet in this case could mean the difference between flood insurance and not.
That really depends on the area. In talking to Dennis at the engineer's office, we talked about topo maps, and you get into a real flat area, 2-foot contour map doesn't really hold the same accuracy where there's, you know, a hilly area. You know what the tolerances were on the new statewide LiDAR? Was that 2 foot or 1 foot? Do you remember what the contours were? And that, again, that was only part of it.
1 or 2.
Yeah, it was 1 or 2. We're not talking survey grade, you know, contouring here. So it just really depends. The biggest concern was why were areas that weren't even in the study, why is the floodplain map being changed when they said that area wasn't even being examined? You know, so that's what we want to address
This kind of
first.
thing makes me wonder, how is FEMA affiliated with these insurance companies?
That I can't answer. Sorry. Anyway. Very good. Thank you.
Number 10, items with the administration office. A is discussion and possible action to authorize 1 additional full-time maintenance worker position for general services. Anyone want to speak on this?
Well, there was a memo in your packet kind of explaining the history. We had an extra maintenance person in the budget, and at the time, or after a while, felt like it wasn't needed, so we took it out. We've had some things change. Specifically, the additional prisoners at the jail and the age of the jail. There's been some discussion over the last year, maybe two, about hiring a maintenance person specifically for the jail. That's been kind of a request from them. We've talked about it and felt like that, if that was done, if they hired their own maintenance person, if that person had a sick day or vacation days or whatever, and then we were forced to pull our people over there when they don't know what's been going on, then it makes more sense to have a general services person that helps cover. But we have 9 buildings, and right now we have 2 maintenance people and supervisors.
Yeah, Sherry, didn't we have some savings from the contractual agreements we left
Yes,
that we're now taking care of with our own personnel?
yes, absolutely.
And what were those savings, just a ballpark?
About $110,000–120,000 a year we saved with our people handling the preventive
That
maintenance.
was
on
with
the
Northwest and people like that.
contract. Yes,
So,
Northwest Mechanical.
we could conceivably fund the need.
Absolutely, and with additional federal prisoner revenue to fund somebody, because we have somebody in that building, correct me, well, Oscar left, almost all day, every day, handling sometimes 2 issues.
Well,
You
it's
know, a lot
always
of times
been,
they're small issues and a lot of them, sometimes they're bigger issues, and
it's always been our highest call volume.
absolutely.
And it's really something that you can't get outside people to help, because it's a very unique facility. And I think with the revenue, the excess revenue maybe on the prisoner account, it all comes back to the general fund, so it makes sense that the general fund may continue. And I don't like the idea of, if the jail had it, then that money may, it sits there, stays there. It's a little more difficult in the shell game of fund accounting. And, plus I do agree with the whole notion of how you get at stuff over there, because it's different. There's kind of a tribal knowledge as to how to do things over there.
Well, and all of our people are sent to the school in Joliet to work on the locking system, and, so we have all of our people trained pretty much to do the work over there, and for them to have one person, like I said, that may work unless that person isn't able to be there, and then how do we call one of our people over and figure out where you at, what have you been doing, how do you do this now?
I think there's a lot of point to be made here to forge ahead with this. However, I personally would like to wait after we have our in-depth on how we're gonna proceed with all the different county properties and maybe additional functions that we may incur, just to see try to quantify the need. Because there'll be additional, I think, besides what we already have.
The other thing I was thinking of, and maybe it doesn't come into play, but I wish CJ was here to speak to it, is what kind of clearance does this person need at the jail?
They do a background check on people.
I mean, we've got people going in there now, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right, I
Absolutely.
understand that, but if they're gonna have somebody dedicated just to that
Yeah.
facility, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I don't think that would be the intention. Your intention would bring them in, manage them like we do, and potentially give better service to the jail, but still keep a crew, basically they'd have a crew of maintenance people instead of just one.
Like the memo says, since August, we've had a temp position trying to keep up. They're not keeping up really well, but keeping up, and the background checks were done, and the temp's able to be clearance to be
Well, and
over there.
also you mentioned the fact we looked at this previously and was gonna go forward with it then.
Yeah, we're already
So I'm sure we've just hashed the heck out of this.
Moving VHS into the community services building changes the whole makeup of that building and the maintenance required. I mean, yes, we took the building down, but we have the same amount of people requiring maintenance, so, I think with the staff we have, they do a really good job trying to keep up with especially the major things. It's the smaller things that are
So let me ask you this as part of this. So we had Vic Amoroso put together that software package for us to help the maintenance department regarding the equipment and maintenance and so forth. How's that been working, and has that alleviated any of the difficulties that, the equipment creates for the staff?
It is used, all of our information, and as we upgrade and change things, it's put in there, so, I mean, that software didn't help with the things breaking. What it helps with is Oscar can drill into it and see, here's a part number for something that's out of warranty, and who we purchased it from, and here's where we go get it. So that does save some time, and especially as, as our current maintenance people retire or leave, we've got that in the system, so whoever replaces them can look into it and see what's been done, where it was done.
So it's a great help, but it hasn't been enough to actually replace a full-time person.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think that was ever the intent.
No, I don't think it was either, but it
The
does.
intent was to gather the information about our buildings that we need. And then, once we get the final report from Mr. Nolan, some of that will be entered in there also for
Sure.
posterity.
It's like an electronic maintenance log or
Should be a time saver
Parts
though, to
list
some
or-
degree.
tells us vendor, where we got it, model
What the
number,
warranty
serial
is
number, warranty.
We've had some things go bad that, Oscar uses that to look in because the warranty dates are in there. We're not trying to find the original paperwork, the original contracts to see where whether we're out of warranty on something or not. So it does get used, but basically it's a cache for information about the systems. If we put a roof on, who's the manufacturer, what warranty, that sort of thing. Not as much to save work.
Right, can you put any kind of numbers on any of this as far as, you had to hire folks to help out? No. So how maybe that cost is looking at costs going forward with a full-time employee? Maybe have you looked at any costs?
Well,
Additional costs.
certainly using the temp is less expensive because we're not providing the
Benefits.
full benefits
Sure.
package.
Yeah, but
And I
they're
did
also not gonna be
calculate-
probably as educated in the job either.
I did in the memo, I included my estimate of the cost
34.
for a full-time for the rest of this year.
Well, as you said, Sherry, it's not the big projects that you're looking at, where you really need quality, skilled maintenance people. It's the hundreds of small things. And how many square cubic feet of buildings are these folks responsible for? And that's where it really comes into play on taking care of.
Oscar, our maintenance supervisor, and I have talked about when we get caught up, we need to look at these things.
Never get caught
Never
up, yeah.
catches up.
Right, so Nancy, you've got, for the remainder, the cost that you figured it might be. So now we're talking ongoing, full-time year, now that's gonna be probably around 50. What do you got for numbers on that?
For, on the cost for a full year would be about 48,000.
That's salary.
That's salary and benefits. That would be an approximate cost, yeah.
And as far as funding for that position, like you said, Bob, when we eliminated the contracts for
Right.
Northwest Mechanical, that saved us.
Well, that was huge.
Well, and at that time, we talked about, do we need a person or not, and Oscar felt like they could get by without it, and he came to me in August and said, I gotta have some help, so that's what.
That was like $129,000 a year, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
Pricey.
120,000 a year, plus the additional federal prisoner count at the jail, just the number, sheer numbers over there.
You know what, I hear you, I hear everybody that brings up the prisoner count, but it doesn't make any difference to me at all, because they can be here today and gone tomorrow. So I'm fine with it, it's great, I'm glad we have it, it's allowed us to do a lot of things, but I don't like to, when I start working numbers on costs today and going forward with hiring employees, as I call them, the gift that keeps giving, so you know.
Well,
The count at the jail is great, but
my point is, the number of prisoners in the building cause additional maintenance issues
Sure.
in the building. So, you know, if the count goes down, whether some of those maintenance issues get better, possibly, but, you know, we've got, you know, even what I like to consider our new expansion isn't really new anymore. So it's a large square footage with 24/7 use, no matter how many prisoners you have in it.
I know, it's just that
Requires a lot of maintenance and to pass inspections and all that. We can't ignore that. Those things have to stay done, so then other people's things.
but we
Sheriff's
hire
not-
somebody, it's going forward, it's not just to finish up a year, they're gonna be here. It's gonna be a continual additional cost.
Right, and I don't think we'd be making this request if we didn't feel like that was warranted.
No, I don't either, but I'd still like to hear what we come out of in our in-depth today and see what we learn.
Well, you know, we've been talking about this for several years, and we've had expenses we've reduced will outweigh the costs, and, you know, I don't know how many times we have to hear the same story. We've asked them to try, and they've kept it, and they're telling us they can't
Yeah.
keep up, and it's
You
like,
don't even know what I'm thinking, Jeff.
I know you're
We
thinking.
might end up needing more than one. We don't know what we're gonna hear. I just wanna hear it.
I'm fine with that, if, I mean, you can put it off for another day, but, I think probably the position is justified in my mind, I don't have a problem with it.
How long we been running additional, part-time help, if you wanna call it that, or where you're going?
Temp help since
Yeah,
August.
temp help. How long?
Since August.
Okay.
And how many hours, or how many temp workers, just one? How many hours a week have they been getting?
40.
They're full-time temp.
Okay, well, that changes
Yeah.
the complexity of it as well.
So you've been running that for approximately 100 days now.
Yeah.
And still having difficulty, you know, staying on top of everything that needs to be done. Well, and Michael's been through the buildings too, so I mean, I think they do a pretty good job keeping up with the big maintenance items, but there are a lot of things that we should be looking at and need to be looking at that should probably be later, that we just don't have the bodies to do it.
What's the temp cost, Ben?
For the rest of this year?
No, it's for the last 100 days.
I don't know.
I know where you're coming from, Bob, on hiring staff, because, you know, you don't like jerking people around. But the other thing is, this board has, spent a lot of money on building and having nice buildings and remodeling them and what have you. And we need to have the staff to maintain it, or we'll be back in some board 5-10 years from now, we'll be back in that same position, shelling out a lot more money to update them again, or
Bob, answer to your question, a rough guess at the cost of the temp for the 100 or so days that we've had him is about 14,000.
Okay. There's not a whole lot of, well, yeah, there's a little bit. Yeah.
And like I said, this is something that we have probably needed for a while, but, you know, kept thinking, well, if we can get through this project, we'll be okay, and when our maintenance supervisor came and said, we've gotta have some help, I knew that was serious, because
He's not gonna ask for it
he didn't
otherwise.
want to do that, so.
I'm good with it.
I'm sorry?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar doesn't ask lightly, you guys don't ask lightly, so I'm inclined to agree.
Well, then I'll make a motion that we approve the position.
I'll second.
I got a motion by Jeff, a second by Matt. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Well, I give you a chance to vote nay again, and you didn't.
Well, I
take it.
didn't want to vote nay. But you didn't realize where I was coming from, 'cause it sounded probably kind of negative, it really wasn't.
We'll be back.
Let's go to B, action to set the 2019 holiday schedule for Muscatine County.
Included in your every year, we send out a memo to our employees, just allowing them an opportunity to give input with a clear explanation that this is a board decision. So that there's a memo in your packet that shows the results of that vote.
And this is the official tally.
Yes.
Did Leslie sign off on
I'd
it's
I'd make a motion for the designation of the first 8 dates and the 3 personal days as shown with the countywide vote.
I mean, not only is that, I'd second it, not only does that make the most sense, I think, well, because the most people supported it, but because anybody, it also lets anybody do that, take any of the choices they want, because they've got the greatest flexibility, so, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer.
All right, I've got a motion by Matt, a second by Nathan.
Well, the only challenge is administratively, how do you do that? Cause now I've got, Keith wants to take this day, Eric wants to take that day, when's there, we have to think a little bit about the taxpayer here, when are the departments open? Is my concern with that. I don't have a freedom, a little personal flexibility is okay, but we also have to think about, we have offices and windows to run and open, and how are we gonna do that if we have?
Typically, it's not unusual for some of the elected officials to opt to close their office for part or all of Christmas Eve. Elected officials have the flexibility to be allowed to do that. I mean, their employees have to use vacation or comp in order for those hours, but, you know, then you have a situation where you have people coming in the building because the building has to be open because the offices that are not elected officials don't have that option.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have people coming in upset because the office they wanted to go to is closed, but the other ones are open.
Well, and the offices with smaller staffs have to choose if everybody has to be off on Christmas Eve, who gets to be off on Christmas Eve. And
What have we done in the past?
We've done the whole gamut of, you know, just 8, we've done as many as 10 on occasion. Christmas Eve is really I think the one date when we sometimes have an issue Christmas Eve day, so.
Well, I mean, the range of choices is between 9 with 1 personal day and 8 with, or excuse me, 9 with 2, and then basically the difference is 2 personal days between the most and the least. So I trust our people to be able to figure out how to serve the taxpayer. You know, I understand that there's gonna be some inconvenience sometime. I don't know that short of chaining people to their desk, it's entirely avoidable. I'm not quite prepared to take that step, but,
I think it's a pretty shallow hurdle.
yeah.
Well, you know, I guess I kind of side with the manager of a small staff, you know. I have to work them all now, because I have to come in and open up, and I have to make sure the customer service, so, you know, they're county employees as well, and we have to be concerned about that, you know. I think Alan will get over it, but, Eric might not.
I'm extremely wound up.
Look at it.
I'm okay. I mean, I don't know that we've ever tried this one.
Don't we usually go with the?
I think we've offered one before, but never 3, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done just.
How did it work?
Well, like I said, it depends on the personnel. I mean, Keith's got more people that may wanna use those at the same time, it becomes more of an impact. Sometimes we have to make hard decisions, so, you know, 2 people, you know, my staff, 2 people already asked for that afternoon, if I can't give a third. I usually try to come in and keep my office open and give my employees their first days off we have to. But it does make it a little more difficult for department heads.
Sometimes it's a moot point. I mean, it depends on when the holidays fall. I mean, if New Year's Eve or
Yeah.
Christmas Eve is a Sunday, then it's kind of a moot point. It
And a
really-
lot of times this vote reflects that, so they felt they went into it.
So maybe I asked the stupid questions, and maybe we should just go to 9 holidays and give them personal days, or vacation, just 2 additional vacation days and be done with it. And then we have fixed holidays, period. These are the days off. Something to think about. Can't do that with contracts and stuff.
We
but
have to,
something
actually,
think
we
forward.
have, some of the union contracts, I mean, we've since taken that out, but what we've done for those groups is set the holidays, to reflect on the holidays, so that you don't have a situation, for instance, at the jail, if Christmas Day falls on a Sunday, for the rest of the county, Monday's the holiday, so a jailer, it used to be a jailer who worked Christmas Day didn't get anything extra for it, but if they worked Monday, they did. So we changed that setup, so for those 24/7 groups, it is actual holidays.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'm sorry, we have a motion and a second.
I've got a motion by
Let's do a vote.
Matt, a second by Nathan, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Let's see, discussion and possible action to reappoint Tom Harper to the Muscatine County Zoning Commission for a second 5-year term ending November 7, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nathan, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Review one application received for a Muscatine County Zoning Commission vacancy position. Possible action to approve an appointment for a term ending November 7, 2021.
As you may recall, we advertised twice for this, and this is the one application that we received in that time frame.
And this one wasn't gender specific.
This one we could have had either gender, so
Yeah.
this meets those requirements.
I know Brady'd be excellent.
Is that your motion?
I'll make a motion. We would approve the appointment of Brad Akers to that position.
Second.
All right.
I got a motion by Jeff, a second by Nathan, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. E is review one application received for a Muscatine County Veterans Affairs Commission vacancy. Possible action to approve an appointment for a term ending June 30, 2020.
And again, this is another one that we advertised twice for. This is the one application that we received. I have confirmed with the Veteran Affairs Administrator that this person does meet the requirements to be appointed for the position.
This is Angela Wright. And,
So I'll move that we appoint Angela Wright, Veterans Affairs Commission.
Second.
motion by Jeff, second by Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We're gonna remove the World War I service qualification from there. Probably quite a few people.
I'll make that recommendation.
I imagine there is, but this language is directly out of the
Out of
code,
the
so
code,
yeah.
I figured. You know, Bobby didn't know if you could get into World War I,
All right, sir.
but his kids, right,
All right,
Spanish American War.
is there anything,
Yeah.
Nancy, is there anything other?
I do not have anything else.
All right, with that, we will take a short recess. It is 9:54. We will reconvene at 10:05. Thank you.